God had been kind of calling him to do something else for a long time, and sometimes, you know, when you're not hearing the still small whisper, sometimes you need a baseball bat over the head. Bill called me and told me the news. I honestly felt a sense of relief and thankfulness and gratitude, as crazy as that sounds. Hi guys, it's Amanda with Eat Pray Crunch, and today is a little bit of a life update. As you can probably tell from the title, my husband lost his job. Yeah, so let me tell you the story of how this came about. My husband is an engineer, and he has been working at the company that he was at for 16 years. Yes, 16 years. He got that job right out of college. It was the very first job he got when he was 22 years old, and he hadn't left since. And it was kind of a job that, you know, he went to a job fair after he graduated, and this was just one of the companies that was available. He wasn't particularly passionate about it or anything, but it was available, it was there, he took the job, they hired him. So long story short, he had been staying in this job just because, you know, he had momentum, and he wasn't quite sure what he were to do if he were to do something else. So he just kind of stuck with it. It was a very high pressure job. They definitely expected their workers to do 50 hours a week minimum, and during busy seasons it was not unusual for my husband to do 60, 70-hour weeks. So as you can imagine, when he was a bachelor, before he and I met, that worked out great because he didn't have anyone to answer to. He could just work and work and work into the night on projects until they were done. You know, he was younger and he could handle that kind of schedule better. He didn't have so many things to juggle. He didn't have to worry so much about this whole work-life balance thing. He could just immerse himself in work. But after he had been there 8 years, he and I met. He had decided that he wanted to kind of get on with his life and have a family and get married. And long story short, we met each other on eHarmony. I talk about that story in this video that I'll link here. And just being married in and of itself made it difficult for him to do the kind of schedule he had been doing with his work before. However, the demands were still the same as they had ever been. So there was a lot of learning that we both had to do our first couple of years of marriage. Me learning the nature of his job, and that there was a lot that was required of him, and that took a lot of adjusting on my part, our first year of marriage especially, and him learning how to really communicate that better, because now he had a wife to respond to, and how to, you know, really communicate well when this is going to be a busy season, I'm going to be working late tonight, yada yada yada. Those things that newlyweds have to learn about communication. And that did get better over a couple of years, but it was still always stressful. He was always stressed out, and he was always trying to, you know, get home at a decent time so we could have an evening together. And a lot of the time it just didn't happen because there were deadlines that had to be met, and you know, I had built up resentments around that, even though he had vastly improved from his, you know, bachelor working schedule. But it was definitely a challenge even then. And then 2 years later, we had our son, Alex. And 2 years after that, we had our daughter, Sophie. And so each one of these things was a new ball that was being added into the juggling act that he was trying to keep from just completely dropping them all. And it was a challenge. And as you can imagine, it was already a little bit difficult just when we were married without kids, and then throw kids into the mix, that adds even more stress, just because raising kids, small kids especially, is often a stressful job in and of itself. So there was just lots of stress upon stress upon stress. It was oftentimes not only a strain on our marriage, it was often a strain on his relationship with his kids, and it was oftentimes things that couldn't be helped because he was our main income earner and he had to do his job in order to earn the income. And so It was just kind of a difficult situation. And for years, he has been thinking that he wanted to do something else, but he just didn't know what. And that's why he stayed there as long as he did. And so it was just kind of going along with the momentum. We were just kind of surviving, getting by. Definitely lots of intermittent intense stress when he went through his work busy seasons, and me dealing with the kids on my own a lot. Thank God for our mothers, because I would not have survived his work schedule without them. They are saints, they are angels, I love them. But quite frankly, it was hard. You know, he and I had been praying about it for a long time, but we were never really, you know, taking action on it. And we kind of felt stuck, because here we have kids especially now, so we really needed him to be the income. So it wasn't, you know, like he was a bachelor again and he could just take a year off and figure out what he wanted to do next and go to grad school and blah, blah, blah. Like, those things are not as easy once you have a family. And that's why we stayed in that situation for so long. Fast forward to this last Christmas, and unbeknownst to me, his company had been warned before their winter break that there were going to be huge layoffs at the beginning of the year. And his company has done this before, but he has survived every single one of these rounds of layoffs before. And in fact, a couple years ago, they were having headhunters coming around, and they even significantly raised his salary because they didn't want the headhunters to take him elsewhere. And so we thought his job was pretty darn secure if they wanted to keep him that badly. We were wrong. Ultimately, it's a company that just doesn't care that much about its workers. And ultimately, it comes down to their bottom line. It comes down to money. It makes me sad. A lot of companies, that is what it's about. It's about money. And if they weren't meeting their, you know, certain percentage profit margin, then they cut a lot of people off. So that is what happened, and he had been there for 16 years. He had been loyal to them for 16 years, but apparently they weren't that loyal to him. However, I have to say that when Bill called me and told me the news, I honestly felt a sense of relief and thankfulness and gratitude, as crazy as that sounds, just because of everything that I had told you about the nature of his work and the stress that it had put on him and our marriage and our family. Deep down felt like it was a God thing. You know, God had been kind of calling him to do something else for a long time, and sometimes, you know, when you're not hearing the still small whisper, sometimes you need a baseball bat over the head, you know what I mean? So that's what we really believed that this was. He actually found out the day that he got back from winter vacation. He said he had a gut feeling, and he actually hadn't told me that this was even a possibility because he didn't want me to worry. And that was probably wise on his part, because I could be a bit of a worrywart. He had a feeling that he was going to be one of them. He didn't know why for sure, but you know, he just had this feeling, and he was right. So that day they gave him the news, and he had to pack up his office, and all of a sudden 16 years, and that was that. So my husband is currently unemployed, and we are viewing this as an actual blessing, because we really feel like God is calling him to something a little different, or we're not sure if he's being called to something different, or you know, something that's in the same field, you know, but with a company that cares about its employees a lot more. We're not quite sure, but we're trying to figure that out. Anyway, so that's the story. That's where we're at. So they gave him a decent severance package, so we are going to be just fine financially, thank you God. And because all these years we have really been living within our means, I have a whole playlist talking about how we have done that, and we have had a fair amount of savings all of this time. It just goes to show you the importance of having a backup plan. I made a whole video about our relationship with money, and I'll link that here as well. And I talked in that video about, we don't follow like Dave Ramsey per se, but we do believe in a lot of the principles, and One of those principles we really believe in is the importance of having a financial backup plan or an emergency fund. And that is something that we have, and we are really grateful that we have that, because here we are in this unexpected situation and we need it now. So we are really, really thankful that we have that cushion in savings, and that we got a severance package, and that gives Bill the flexibility to not have to just find the next job, the first thing that comes along, and that he can really take the time to soul search, really take the time to pray and listen to where God wants him to be next. And I am just so thankful. I always tell Bill, I'm like, I'm so thankful that you've been at such a tightwad all this time, because now, you know, in something that could be a crisis, it's not at all. There are just so many blessings in all of this. So I just wanted to ask you guys to, if you're the praying type, if you could pray for Bill, just that he, you know, can really figure out what his next step is, that would become really clear to him. And also pray for Bill and his mental health, because it's definitely a big change for him. It's going way out of his comfort zone, and, you know, just definitely finding peace in all of that, even though we know that this is the right thing for us. So life is just full of ups and downs and bumps and unexpected twists and turns, but, you know, that's what makes it interesting, right? You know, sometimes God gives us little surprises that we wouldn't expect, and, you know, helps us make lemonade out of lemons. So anyway, thank you guys so much for your prayers, your positive thoughts, and thank you guys so much for watching as well. I just really appreciate this YouTube community. I mean, you hear so many YouTubers say it, and it's because it's so true. I just feel so thankful to have this community of mostly moms, and that we're just all there for each other, and we're there to pray for each other. We're there to have solidarity with each other. And I just, you know, I just am so thankful for that. I'm thankful that here I am, I can get on YouTube and have a little chat with you guys about, you know, what's going on in my life, and I can, you know, hear the stories about what's going on in your guys' lives and pray for you. And I just think it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching and just being the awesome community that you are. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.